imagine being kicked out of your own palace with nothing but a single suitcase? This actually happened to a king in 1952. This is King Farouk of Egypt. This dude had 5 palaces, a crazy fleet of luxury cars, and thousands of acres of land. He was the last king of a 150-year-old dynasty and was basically a god to his people. So how did he lose it all? How does a king who was loved by millions literally gamble away an entire country? This is the insane story of the Playboy king, whose life of non-stop partying and terrible decisions led to a revolution that cost him everything. When Farouk became king in 1936, it was a huge deal. He was only 16 years old, super famous, and actually spoke the same language as his people, which other kings hadn't. He even led prayers in public, and people went wild for him. For the first time, Egyptians felt like they had a king who was one of them. When he gave his first speech on the radio, he told everyone, "I am prepared for all sacrifices in the cause of my duty." And people believed him. At the time, Egypt was technically its own country, but it was still under the thumb of the British. Everyone hoped Farouk would be the hero to finally get them total independence. He was supposed to be this genius politician, even better than his dad, who was a master at playing the British against the local government. And at first, it looked like he was the guy. He was this golden boy, a symbol of a new, modern Egypt. But behind the scenes, things were already going wrong. He was incredibly spoiled, and that sense of being entitled to anything he wanted was about to explode in the worst way possible. The perfect king was about to become a perfect disaster. The hype around Farouk started to die really fast once his personal habits took over. The king's life turned into one giant non-stop party. He collected thousands of cars, coins, and even priceless art. His parties were legendary, and the amount of food he ate was insane. They say he ate up to 600 oysters a week, while many of his people didn't have enough to eat. He spent all day gambling and all night partying, which left zero time to actually run a country. His personal life was just as messy. He married Queen Farida in a massive royal wedding, but he was obsessed with having a son to take over the throne. When she had 3 daughters instead, he was furious. He cheated on her constantly and openly, with an endless stream of mistresses and showgirls. They divorced in 1948, which was a huge scandal that made the monarchy look like a joke. But here's where the story gets really weird. This guy, who could literally buy anything on earth, was a kleptomaniac. He had an uncontrollable urge to steal things. The stories are insane and so embarrassing. During a meeting, he apparently stole a gold pocket watch from Winston Churchill. They got it back quietly, but can you imagine? He also stole a ceremonial sword from the coffin of the Shah of Iran's father. During the funeral, this wasn't just a one-time thing. He would pocket anything that wasn't nailed down. While Farouk was busy partying and stealing, he was losing control of his country. He was constantly fighting with his own government and with the British. This blew up in 1942. With German forces getting close to Egypt, the British were scared Farouk was on their enemy's side. So, the British ambassador showed up with tanks, surrounded the palace, and gave him an ultimatum. Either do what we say, or you're not king anymore. Farouk gave in, which saved his crown but made him look like a coward to his people, and, even worse, to his own army. The rest of his time as king was a train wreck of corruption. The final nail in the coffin was the disastrous 1948 war with Israel. The Egyptian army got crushed, and everyone blamed the king's government, accusing them of sending soldiers to fight with broken and defective weapons. The soldiers who came home felt totally betrayed, and that anger created the perfect storm for a rebellion. By the 1950s, Egypt was a time bomb waiting to explode. The public was done. Farouk's insane lifestyle, his scandals, and the country's terrible economy had turned almost everyone against him. He married a 16-year-old girl and finally had a son, but nobody cared anymore. The boy king was now seen as a corrupt joke who was completely out of touch with reality. The end came so fast, he didn't see it coming. On the night of July 23, 1952, a group of army officers who called themselves the Free Officers Movement launched a coup. It was led by a guy named Gamal Abdel Nasser, and they took over the entire capital city of Cairo almost without firing a single shot. Farouk was at his summer palace and was completely powerless. The army that was supposed to protect him had just overthrown him. He was given a simple choice: give up the throne or else. He signed the papers, handing the kingdom over to his baby son. But everyone knew this was just for show. The monarchy was finished. He was allowed to sail away on his royal yacht, taking almost none of his massive fortune with him. As he left, he reportedly said, "The revolution will say bad things about me. If possible, write about my life and show everyone that they are wrong." Farouk spent the rest of his life in exile, mostly in Rome, living the same wild party lifestyle that got him kicked out of Egypt. He was famous just for being a former king. His second wife divorced him, and he was pretty much alone. Then, on March 18, 1965, at just 45 years old, Farouk collapsed and died in a restaurant in Rome after eating an absolutely gigantic meal. It was a shocking end for a man who lived his entire life in excess. King Farouk's story is an insane cautionary tale. He was handed an entire kingdom with so much potential, and he threw it all away because he just couldn't stop partying. His story isn't just about scandals. It's about what happens when a country gets tired of its leader and decides to burn the whole thing down. The 1952 revolution didn't just get rid of a king. It destroyed a 150-year-old dynasty and started a completely new chapter for Egypt. Farouk went from being the king of Egypt to a wild story you hear about on the internet, forever remembered as the Playboy king who gambled away a country and lost everything. The story of King Farouk is a crazy example of how one person's terrible decisions can ruin an entire country. If you think this deep dive into historical drama is insane, smash that subscribe button for more stories about the wildest figures in history. Your support helps us keep bringing you these unbelievable stories.